The proliferation of voice-activated digital assistant devices, such as Amazon Echo and Google Home devices for home users, has created additional and unique security concerns for users. These devices interact with users by voice. Once the device hears a keyword, it translates the speech to text and acts on or invokes the command. It can give information via sound back to the user, process a request through another cloud service, or activate connected devices. Voice-activated digital assistants grew out of Google's voice search and Apple's Siri assistants, both of which were developed into apps for iOS and Android devices respectively. The virtual assistant device ecosystems have several connected subsystems, which include the manufacturer-developed hardware device, a cloud-based service that holds the user account information and performs speech-to-text processing, consumer hardware such as smartphones, tablets, and computers, and connections to third-party clouds, devices, and apps. The Amazon Echo ecosystem is composed of standalone devices, Echo models, that operate Amazon's cloud-based virtual digital assistant software, Alexa. The Echo devices and Alexa software are able to connect with third-party developed hardware and software and typical consumer computing devices through Amazon Cloud Services. A cybersecurity threat is defined as anything that can cause harm to a computer system. The virtual assistant systems and devices are vulnerable to many of the same types of threats as a computer system and mobile devices. Unfortunately, the security of the connected devices and ecosystems are lagging and easily attacked. There are unique threats to the virtual assistant ecosystems, including voice squatting, rogue app invocation, voice masquerading, weak authentication, DolphinAttack, and no physical access is required to operate the device. A voice squatting attack occurs when a third-party app is installed that contains voice-activated triggers that sound similar to other words and voice commands. For example, a user may issue the voice command, open Capital One. The user would expect the Capital One app to open and to interact with that app. A rogue third-party app would create a voice squatting attack that listens for the trigger words of Open Capital One with a W. This would open a different app than the user intended and allow the rogue app to collect information without the user realizing the information was being sent to a different app or website. A voice squatting attack is designed to capture personally identifiable information from the owner or user of the device without their knowledge. The user is generally unaware of the voice squatting attack and believes that they are sharing information with the app they invoked by voice. Without proper feedback from the device, it is difficult for the user to determine if the app they invoked by voice is actually the app that is running. The owner has the ability to check the history of the speech-to-text results through the app or through the web. The history will reveal whether the device heard Capital One with an O or Capital One with a W. Owners need to review their history to ensure that a voice squatting attack has not occurred. The Amazon Alexa skill and Google Home app marketplace allow for skills that are named the same or similarly. Additionally, Amazon allows for the invocation name to be different from the skill name in the marketplace. These factors allow for the possibility of users invoking a different skill than they had intended. For example, the Amazon Alexa skill marketplace has 125 skill names that contain the words dogfax. When a user tries to invoke the skill dogfax, they do not have any control over which of the 125 skills Amazon Alexa will invoke. This allows attackers to create skills with invocation names and commands that are very similar to commonly used apps. Without proper feedback from the device, the user cannot know which app or skill was invoked. Third-party apps or skills will use this technique to increase traffic to their app or website in an effort to increase revenue for their app or skill. The lack of proper feedback effectively masks the rogue skill's identity from the user. Owners have to refer to their device's voice history through the ecosystem's app or website to determine what skill or app was invoked. Furthermore, the owner would need to know what command was intended to be issued by the user when reviewing the history of attacks. Determining the user's intention can be difficult, as the speech-to-text history gives no indication of who issued a command. It only provides a timestamp. Voice masquerading occurs when a malicious app continues to actively listen and run after the user believes the app has finished and closed. The app intercepts voice interactions of legitimate apps and masquerades interactions to retrieve personal data from the user or owner. Voice masquerading can collect all the audio, not just the commands that the device microphones receive after the user believes the app is closed. If there are active conversations occurring within the device's range, it will continue to record the sounds. If anyone within range of the device's microphones reveals any sensitive information, they are at risk of having it processed and sold for profit. The owner of the device will need to check its history to verify that only the apps that have been authorized have been running. Owners or users may choose to use the physical mute button on the device at the end of any interactive session to guarantee the device is no longer listening. Owners and users should consider muting the devices whenever a conversation containing sensitive information occurs within range of the device's microphones. Amazon Alexa and Google Home both employ a weak single-factor authentication to access the device. Authentication is carried out by the device listening for a keyword or phrase. Echo devices listen for the keyword Alexa, and Google devices listen for the keywords OK Google or Hey Google. After a user has issued the keyword or phrase, they have access to the entire ecosystem's information. The voice authentication methods for both Google and Amazon devices are widely known and published. Anyone can access the devices by voice and gain access to the user's account information. The net effect of this is that every user is treated as the account owner. Users have the ability to make phone calls, send messages, access account information from Amazon's cloud services as the owner of the device. The damage from this threat could range from an inadvertent message sent to someone on behalf of the owner to the access of personally identifiable information from the device. The weak authentication methods are not easily defended. The owners of the devices have a few options. They can physically mute the microphones using the button on the devices. They can disconnect the devices from power and lock them up. Or they could use their wireless router controls to block the devices from accessing the internet when they are not in use. Sending voice commands in the ultrasound frequency range to speech-enabled devices is defined as a Dolphin attack. These attacks can be carried out using a device that converts normal speech into ultrasound frequencies. The manipulated speech is then broadcast via a wireless or wired connected speaker to the device. The commands issued would not be heard by anyone physically near the device and would be acted upon by the device. An inaudible voice command may take over the hardware device and carry out commands without the user's knowledge. There are three distinct threat types for Dolphin attacks. They can cause the hardware device to visit a malicious website. They can spy, collect personally identifiable information and sensitive information from conversations in range of the microphones. or they can inject false information into a message or email and send it to someone on your behalf. There are two types of defenses for the Dolphin attack. The first is a hardware-based defense. The manufacturers could change to microphones that do not pick up frequencies higher than 20 kilohertz. A software-based defense would require the software to analyze the incoming signals from the microphones, and through that analyzation determine if the sound is coming from an ultrasound frequency, and then reject those commands. These systems are designed and assume that a user is nearby the hardware devices in order to issue voice commands. The devices do not have physical presence-based access controls and can accept voice commands even if the person is not near the device. The microphones respond to any sounds that reach them that are above 60 decibels. This means that someone outside of the room that is able to elevate their voice above the 60 decibel level in the room can activate the devices. The devices also can be activated with a remote speaker placed inside or near the room that is able to project a sound above 60 decibels. The ability to activate a device without being physically present creates several threats for owners and users of the devices. A bad actor may be able to use their voice or some type of portable amplifier and speaker to activate the device from outside of the home. The devices may be activated by speakers connected to TVs, radios, or stereos. The speakers in one room have the ability to activate the device in another room without the owner's or user's knowledge. The expanding number of devices that work with the ecosystems has grown to include security, HVAC, and kitchen appliances. Attacking these types of devices with a non-physical presence attack could lead to theft, physical damage to the home, or physical harm to someone residing in the home. Defense from these types of attacks would require the owner or user to mute the microphone or physically secure the device to ensure that it is not activated by a non-physical presence attack. The owners may decide not to connect the types of third-party devices that may cause serious physical damage to the home, or security systems that could be disabled by a voice command. The always-on nature of the hardware and ecosystem raised several privacy and ethical implication concerns for owners, users, and third-party developers. The hardware devices are constantly listening and capturing all sounds that the microphones receive. Each device is connected to a user account. The ecosystems require the account connection for activation and use. It cannot be used without an account. The devices do not have the ability to switch accounts simply by issuing a command. Every interaction with the device is recorded in the owning user's account, regardless of who issued the command. The owner has access to the history of all interactions with the device. The lack of account authentication allows anyone who interacts with the device to access the owning user's information. There are several legal implications and questions that are being considered in legal communities surrounding the retrieval of information from the devices. Are police officers able to retrieve the information from the devices without a search warrant? When a user turns over their data to a third party, do they have a legitimate expectation of privacy, or can the third party voluntarily turn over the data to the government? The devices have no means to determine or verify the age of the user issuing command. This would allow apps to gather personally identifiable information from users under the age of 13. This is a potential violation of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule. It could also potentially put minors at risk from child predators. Minors would have access to all the data of the adult account holders, including music with explicit lyrics and books with explicit passages. Digital assistance offerings will continue to increase as they offer easy voice access to home automation, user data, and integration with third-party skills and apps. Tighter control of owner and user data and access to the devices is needed to prevent these devices from being exploited by bad actors. Manufacturers and third-party developers will need to develop antivirus and anti-malware type skills or apps for the devices to minimize the risks of exploitation of the consumer devices. Additional control skills or apps should be developed for the devices. For example, a skill could be added to mute the microphone with a voice command that gives the user verbal feedback to confirm that the microphone is muted when the command is invoked. The digital assistant device's weakest security point is authentication. Manufacturers need to give owners the ability to limit the use of the device to authorized users only. This could be done through biometric voice authentication systems. The digital assistant systems currently have all the needed hardware and software processing resources to support this type of authentication. The increase in sales of digital assistant devices is a clear indicator that consumers like the service and user features that have been developed. The increase in sales and use of the devices is creating an increase in malware threats developed by bad actors designed to take advantage of the security flaws in the devices. The digital assistant devices are susceptible to the common types of threats for mobile devices. They are also susceptible to a unique set of threats that are primarily born out of weak authentication schemes and inadequate feedback to the user of the device when a command is issued. Owners of digital assistant devices need to be aware of the unique set of threats that accompany the installation and use of these products in the home. Owners should review the use history of the device periodically using the app or website to ensure that third-party apps are working as they were advertised and not collecting additional data or carrying out unwanted commands. Privacy with the digital assistant devices and ecosystems is weak. The weak authentication and always-on nature of the devices allow the owner's information to be reviewed by anyone using the devices. Homes that have minor children have additional concerns for their privacy and security when the devices are available and used by minor children.